Let's talk about hydroelectric on Lake Ontario and the St. Lawrence River. Let's talk about hydroelectric on Lake George and the Lachute River. Let's talk about the mill pond and the pinhole in the bathtub on Lake Ontario and Lake George. Let's talk about the flushing of huge amounts of sewage and chemical toxins down the Hudson River and down the Lachute River. I call it the Poop Chute River for all my friends up there on the St. Lawrence and on Lake Ontario. And let's call Lake Ontario the mill pond, where all the hydroelectric gazillionaires stuff their bank accounts with all that flood water. You see, folks, up on Lake George, this flooding of the lake basin has been going on for, well, just about 200 years. The money that's made from hydroelectric dams and ponding back water. You see, you got to let the water come up before you can flush it through your money machine. You got to let the water build up and then you flush it to make a lot of money for your investor class, your contributors to Basil Sagos and all of his conservation programs, and to the government of Canada and all their politicians and their conservation programs, and Andrew Cuomo in his state of New York and his New York State Power Authority, and the money that stuffs the pockets of Canadian Power. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the story on Lake Ontario is the exact same story that has been going on Lake George in the Adirondacks for many decades. They let the water build up and then they flush it for money through the pinhole, the dam at Alexandria, at Weedville, old Weedville up there, dam number 230. The same old story, up and down, up and down, up and down with the water, while they destroy all kinds of shoreline property owners' docks and marinas and boathouses and their seawalls, and they wipe out their houses and they wipe out their parks and they flood everything with the up and down, up and down, up and down water. So what happened to my family, what happened to Clifford and Anita Witham on Lake George when their marina was destroyed year after year after year after year after year after year, when the International Power Corporation was flushing water and sewage and huge amounts of chemicals and toxins into Lake Champlain with their up and down, up and down, up and down water on the Lake George mill pond through the Lake George pinhole, exactly like the Ontario mill pond and the Ontario pinhole, while the investor class that donate huge amounts of money to government and politicians for their Adirondack Park and their, all these different conservation programs. And which brings me to a point. I was reading that the flooding on Lake Ontario was about a great wetlands restoration. You got environmentalists that love the high water because it floods the old swamps. And ask me about swamps. I can tell you all about swamps. So to Basil Sagos and to Governor Andrew Cuomo and to Essex County Attorney Daniel Tedford, the Essex County Health Department, and the people that live there in the village and town of Ticonderoga with their toxin-belching paper mill, the International Power and the International Paper Corporation. Let's not leave out Finch Prine and all the polluters that have destroyed the Hudson River and all the other polluters that have destroyed Lake Champlain. Let's talk about the up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down water on Lake Ontario, and how the state of New York is spending hundreds of millions of dollars to fix the property destruction caused by the hydroelectric operators. Why is the state of New York's taxpayers paying to fix the destruction of the billionaire hydroelectric corporations? Are they socializing the destruction of the property caused by the hydroelectric companies? And the answer is, well, of course they are. They're socializing it. Now to Basil Sagos and to David Wick, he's at the Lake George Park Commission, and to, Roger Smith at the Lake George Park Commission, and to the Essex County, the Washington County, and the Warren County Board of Supervisors. What is it with the up and down, up and down, up and down water on Lake George that's any different than the up and down, up and down, up and down water on Lake Ontario and the St. Lawrence River? Why isn't the state of New York reimbursing the Witham family for the destruction of their marina year after year after year after year after year? And then, of course, the state of New York, with its top judge, Richard Bartlett of Bartlett, Pontiff, Stewart, and Rhodes, the most powerful judge in the state, winds up with all of my parents' property. Isn't that just cute? The state of New York and International Power, Hydroelectric Power International Power Corporation, up and down, up and down, up and down with the unstable ice sheet. The unstable ice sheet on Lake George wipes out the Witham Marina year after year after year after year after year, and then of course they take everything my parents ever worked for and haven't reimbursed not even a cent. They won't even answer FOIL demands for the information of the state's records. They're silent. They're dead silent. They're hiding all the records. At Department of Environmental Confiscation, the DEC. Now there's millions of witnesses to this up and down, up and down, up and down water on the St. Lawrence, and this up and down, up and down, up and down water on Lake Ontario. And guess what? They did the exact same thing on Lake George, flushing huge amounts of sewage. All you got to do is ask RPI University, ask Union College, ask Paul Smith's College, ask SUNY New York Cornell, ask the town of Queensbury, ask the village of Lake George, ask all the news media in Vermont and New York State about the up and down, up and down, up and down water and sewage flushing, all the sewage from Lake George and the Lachute River, and all the toxic, chemical-laden, poisonous mill waste. The mill waste they flushed it with the up and down water. They flushed massive amounts of industrial toxins from the International Power Corporation right in front of Fort Ticonderoga. Right in front of Fort Ticonderoga, and that's to the Essex County Attorney, who's trying to claim that he doesn't understand the records I'm asking for. That's correct, Miss Gillibrand and Stefanik, and Dan Steck and Betty Little. The New York State Legislature, Lake George Park Commission, and the Department of Environmental Conservation, they don't want to obey the FOIL laws. They want to hide all the records. Now, to all my friends up on Lake Ontario that are dealing with the pinhole in the St. Lawrence River, the hydroelectric money-making machine for Wall Street, and the Canadian investor class, and the New York State investor class that own the hydroelectric up and down, up and down, up and down water, the mill pond on the Lake Ontario. To all those people, I just have a question. When is the state of New York going to reimburse the Witham family? When does the Witham family get that big fat check from Basil Sagos and Andrew Cuomo for the destruction of the Witham property? I'm going to leave it right there. I got a phone call coming in. Y'all have a nice day.